Just use my dictaphone.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
you remember my name Alina, right?
Yes.
I'm just writing some articles for Russian newspaper, and I found like a couple of weeks ago your website about your movement,
Yes.
Zeitgeist,
Right.
and I found that it's very interesting, and it will be very interesting to show people in Russia what's your ideas about and what your goals about, because I never found any movement like Zeitgeist.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well. So I mean, I guess what makes us different from a lot of other movements or organizations is that we're not trying to band-aid a problem. So very often, you have various, I guess, organizations that are trying to maybe solve world hunger, which is good. We need to solve that. Maybe we need to, cancer, asthma, or maybe they talk about laws. And so anyway, there's just a whole sorts of issues that are going on, but no one's really addressing the monetary system and the incentives it creates. So we feel that gets to the root cause of the problem, which is what we want to do is communicate to people that there's another option. People often feel that the monetary system, our current system, is something that can be changed, almost as if it was, like the the laws of physics or biology. Those are real laws that we all have to follow. There's no breaking the laws of physics or biology. But people look at the monetary system as if it's unchangeable, and people don't get that. It's just an invention, and maybe it worked for some time, and that's fine. But it's time to move on now, and that's kind of where we get the most friction. Is very often people feel like, well, there's nothing wrong with making money, and I mean, yeah, money itself, it's just paper. It's just an object, but the incentives it creates and the values and the culture that come from that. So that's one of the main things, if not the main thing we want to address.
For example, in your imagination, if it's in society no any more money, how it's gonna work? Like, how people gonna work for what? Like,
okay.
Yes.
So this is the thing. Another argument that you bring up is what will people do? If there is no need to work, the assumption very often is that people will just be lazy and they won't do anything. But the thing is, even in our own culture, as limiting as it is, people often want to do what they love. So maybe, I don't know, maybe you're a journalist now, and maybe when after hours, maybe you draw, or you do photography, or maybe you want to spend time with family and, get better at interacting with them. I mean, there's so many things that people do. And I think there's a huge percentage of people that volunteer a lot of their time to things that they love, that motivate them to do things, regardless of what they do to pay bills. So I think the reality is that most people won't just sit around and do nothing, because there's always a craving to kind of explore and be curious and learn new things. But that gets diminished in this culture. So as you become an adult, now you think, well, you know what, I won't explore new things. I won't be thirsty to learn anything new. So the idea is that we want to change culture as far as overall why people do things, the incentives behind things. So it will no longer be so much about doing things for money. It'll be doing things to better everybody. So that's not to say that everybody will be an engineer or a scientist, but there will be the mindset that we're doing things for the planet, not just to benefit my circle of friends or to benefit my organization or my company. So the mindset is that it will be much broader. It will be because we want to better the planet, to better ourselves. So it's becoming, again, part of the cycle that we used to be part of, but now we're so detached, as you can see.
Yes.
Yeah.
But for example, right now, society needs people who maybe even don't like their jobs, but society needs that. For example, peasants or engineers, and some people who just work for money, but without those people, society couldn't grow up.
Right.
So,
Without those
what
people.
could,
Okay.
what can be inspiration for those people in future in your model of society?
Right. Okay. So the thing is, let's take it back to this model. There's a lot of people who want to be engineers, who want to be scientists, a lot of these people who you mentioned in your example.
Peasants.
I'm sorry?
Peasants. What about agriculture?
What about agriculture?
Yeah, peasants.
Okay. So as far as peasants, what would they be doing? Well, okay, so we'll take it to automation. Very often when it comes to labor, people feel like, okay, people need things to do, people need to work. And yeah, I believe definitely that your mind needs to stay active and your body as well. But it doesn't necessarily have to be doing hard labor, cutting sugar cane. That can be left to machines to do. So not only do we want to change the values, but we want to use science and technology to boost humanity forward so that it can liberate us from some of those tasks. A lot of those farmers, they love what they do, and that's great, and we need that. But I know there's a lot of people who do a lot of tedious work and do things, and maybe they want to be engineers, maybe have the capacity to do it, but maybe in their countries they don't have the resources, or the economy is not very good, so they can't go and apply for a job or an internship. I mean, those concepts are new in other countries and aren't even heard of. So that's the thing, is we want to create more options for people so that we're not just doing things, not just working. In this economic model, people fear automation. People are so afraid when they get taken over by machines and, oh my God, that's so scary, what am I going to do? Well, hopefully there'll be more of a purpose than just your job. If for example, I used to be a mailroom clerk. If I were to do that for 10 years of my life, how fulfilling would that be? Well, at least I have my job and I could pay my bills. But what is that really doing for you emotionally, and what am I really doing for society? Yeah, so to answer your question, we want to liberate those peasants, as you call them, or the sweatshop labor workers, and all of these people who, we have so much capacity, and we have people doing redundant tasks that don't really fulfill anything and don't contribute back in a much bigger sense. I mean, agriculture is very important, and yes, that's one of those things that we need, like water. We need food. We need air. But a lot of the work that is done can be done in a way that it liberates people from the labor, and we can give that to a machine to do it.
Also, I've seen in your website that a lot of people afraid that robots or machine can take over of a people.
Right.
Because, like, you created the idea that all machine can to take charge of the hard work.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
So how you can prevent that?
Okay. Well,
What do you think about that?
first, it's not even about so much preventing. When you make a machine, or when you create a table, for example, I mean, it's still science, still technology, right? So if I program my computer to attack people, then that's a problem. Like, I'm not concerned about any of the technology. I'm not worried about my camera hitting me or trying to take my food or anything like that, right? So as ridiculous as that sounds, if you have such a negative stigma with how machines are going to take over, I mean, if you program a robot to do harmful things, then yeah, that is a problem. And if that were to occur, it's not because of the metals or the wires that are inside of it. They're just wires and circuits. They don't do anything. They're just objects. Now the problem is preventing it. And as far as you mentioned, preventing the problem, that depends a lot on our culture, right? So if our culture is very defensive and protective and wants to do things and invent things that are just here to maybe, harm other people, like weapons, for example, then yeah, I could see why people would be afraid. So I think the fear is the fear that people have in other people, that maybe society is not ready, that we'll program machines to attack us and